Yo, what's good, YouTube? This is Jay from TNJ, and welcome to the Indianapolis Arrows Franchise. We are 67 games into the season here in season number 5, and the Arrows are looking decent, 37-30. I would expect more wins, especially seeing the offense that we have. Our pitching staff is doing okay so far. Now, looking at the month of June, though, we have a very tough schedule coming up. We're in the heat of an AL Central race. It's very close right now. The Twins and Guardians are within a game and a half, so these crucial games are going to be really big here in this month if we want to create some separation in the standings. One guy that's having a great season is Joey Meneses. We acquired him at the trade deadline last season. He has 18 home runs so far. He's hitting .315, 48 RBIs. It looks like he could be well on his way to his career high in RBIs. He's going to cut it pretty close with home runs. Ray Gonzalez is easily having one of the best seasons of his career so far, in his young career, I should say. And he has been nailed so far, like 296, and I've been moving him up in the lineup and trying him even at number 3 in the lineup. He's been that good of a hitter. Pat Washington, also another guy that's having a good year. Now, early in his career, he was not as consistent as he is now, but now I see him getting on base at a higher clip and scoring more runs, so that's pretty awesome, to be honest. Looking around the league, there are some very good prospects, and I want to take a look at ours in the top 50 as well. We've had 2 generational prospects in this series so far through 5 seasons. The first one is Ken Wallace. He is an outfielder for the Orioles. He has 99 potential, 18 years old, but only 72 overall, so I haven't seen any high overall generational prospects yet. The second is a closing pitcher, actually, Akinori Na, and he has been 99 potential for the past 2 seasons. He was drafted back in season number 3. Now, our top prospects in the top 50 kind of were all drafted last year. A couple of them were. Kenny Marrero is our highest, and he was drafted in the 3rd round of last year, so he was our 3rd pick. Roy Page was our 1st pick last year. He looks decent, 21 years old. He's going to have to develop a little bit more, but he's going to have that time. That's the thing with him. He's going to have time. A lot of our starting pitchers are going to have time. We have some good, prospects in our organization that really don't need to be rushed up. Enrique Villalobos was also drafted last year. So we have 3 guys drafted last year in the top 50. And then you can't forget about Terrell Blake, who is very close to making his MLB debut. But I'm in no rush for him either, because Sean Manaea, who we signed in the offseason to kind of buy time for Blake, is killing it so far. So there is no rush to have any of these top prospects up at the MLB level. But one guy I do want to give a shot to once again is Fred Scott. Fred Scott was drafted back in season number 4. Actually, back in season number 3, I should say, and he made his debut in season number 4, and he was okay. Like, he was basically just a outfielder to put in the rotation, but I want to give him a legit shot to have a shot at really getting some everyday playing time, or at least splitting playing time in the outfield. He's got unreal speed. We need the speed at the MLB level. We do not have any of it. We just have a lot of bats, good bats, but no speed to show for. So now here we go versus the Chicago White Sox, where Fred Scott will make his debut. He got the call. He's going to play today, and we got to beat the White Sox. I mean, they are the little brother of the division right now. They are in 4th place, along with the Wranglers. Those 2 are lagging behind quite a bit from the Twins and the Guardians. We face Noah Schultz, 6'9" lefty on the mound, as Fred Scott will lead off this game in this episode. We'll see what he can do versus the 6'9", pretty good lefty who's developing in his own right as well. So Fred Scott takes one low and outside. He gets a 2-1 count here, high and in tight, and he swings at that one. Maybe not the best pitch to swing at. He had another strike, but he pops out in the infield. Ray Gonzalez hitting in the ace spot, but like I said, I've been fluctuating him a lot around the lineup. We'll see what he can do here. He hits one hard up the middle. That one is smoked for a base knock. I used to not be able to hit with Ray Gonzalez very well, but now he's doing pretty well. Runners on first and second here, And that brings up Cam Collier to the plate in the top of the second inning. And he swings and misses, gets fooled at the slider low in the zone. And that will get the White Sox out of the inning. Ray up again in the fourth inning. Same spot, same result. It's a base hit, moving Dylan Carlson over to second base. And now we have men on first and second again. Same exact situation 2 innings later. Cam Collier, same pitch, a low slider. This time he connects. This is to the left center gap. It gets all the way to the wall, and it is a 3-0 game. So funny how Noah Schultz thought the same pitch would fool Cam Collier, but this time he connects. It's a 3-0 game now into the top of the 5th inning. Here is Salvador Perez, who hits one hard down the left field line. That one gets all the way to the wall. It will score 2. Perez, a bad throw to second, will make it all the way to second. And it's going to be a bases clearing double. It is 5-0 here in the top of the 5th. Ray Gonzalez 2 for 2 today. Make that 3 for 3 with runners on the corners. That will get all the way to the wall. It hits off of the top of the fence and bounces over for a ground rule double. A 3 for 3 day from the kid, Ray Gonzalez. And that brings up Cam Collier again, who connects on this one deep to right center field, but this one will get run down by Luis Robert in center. And we go to quick manage, and one thing I know about quick manage is that when you have a guy that has a high walk per 9, they usually do well in quick manage, like Todd Workman. But Todd Workman gave up a 3-run home run. We put in Carl Edwards. He gives up a 3-run home run, and just like that, this game is tied. You've got to be kidding me. We had 12 hits to like their 2, and they still end up tying the game. It's crazy. Ray Gonzalez back at the plate. How about a 4 for 4 day from the kid? Will he beat this one out? He's safe at first. 4 for 4 for Ray Gonzalez. And now we have a man on first base, the top of our order, back at the plate, but Fred Scott cannot make contact. He was 0 for 4 before that plate appearance, 0 for 5 debut. Alex Verdugo, low slider. It's a swinging strike 3. Believe it or not, the White Sox come down 6-0 and score 8 straight unanswered runs. Meneses having a great season. Ground ball to short, and our pitching staff lets us down. Workman gives up 3. Then Carl Edwards gives up 3. And then we give up 2 more in the 8th. We lose this game 6-8. This is a devastating loss, by the way, because having a lead like that with the offense that we have, it's incredible. Well, we end up losing that game 6-8, losing the next game 4-7, winning the 3rd game in the series 8-3, but then we drop 3 of 4 on the road versus the White Sox. That does not look good. We then face the Minnesota Twins, and we know they're competing for the division as well. Salvador Perez gets hurt in this game, and we are at home, and we get swept at home. So the Arrows are struggling a bit here in the middle of June, and I have no idea what's going on. Our pitching staff has given up quite a few runs. I mean, these games, we are giving up some runs here. 6-3 in this one, and it's Jose Urquidy. 9 hits given up. He only lasted 3 1/3 inning. Just very, very unheard of there. And now in the next game, we lose versus Minnesota at home. This time it's Tayfon Edwards, who's been pretty good in this series. He gives up 6 hits. He walks 3, gives up 3 earned runs. And then in the next game, it's Minnesota again. They win 9-7, and Workman gets worked on the mound. 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 walks. I mean, our starters are the ones giving up these runs right now. And then we look at the final game of this series. It's Minnesota again, and Babe Miller, 5 earned runs. I mean, this is too many runs given up by our starters. Maybe it's a rough patch, but it's definitely something to keep your eye on. We are now 38-36, a game back from first place, and now in 3rd place in the division. I did not see that type of drop off, happening that fast, but it happened. Babe Miller, just a weird story. A 115 whip, but almost a 5 ERA. I cannot explain it at all. The only explanation I can give is that he's given up a lot of home runs, and they're like 3-run home runs, 4-run home runs, things like that. Josh Brody has served as our long reliever, but I'm thinking about giving him a chance at starter, but he's doing so well as a long reliever that I don't want to break his mojo. I think I'm just going to keep him there, but it's just something to think about. Todd Workman's been interesting. You know, he's been a really good pitcher in this series, and all of a sudden this year, I came into this season expecting him to have a good year, and he's having the worst year of his career by far. And then Sean Manaea, I can't say enough good things about him. I thought he would be decent, but he's been great. Below a 3 ERA, a 1.20 whip, and that's where we start the next game in a start with him, and he loses. He has a bad outing as well. Then we get some news. Pat Washington out 6 months with a torn Achilles. This sucks because now we have to go to our minor leagues, and we do have the depth. I'm not worried about that, but Pat Washington has been a crucial player, at least in the regular season. He scores a lot of runs, and we're going to have to move somebody up, somebody a little bit earlier than we wanted, and Keith Rice is that guy. Remember, he was hurt in I believe it was a calf injury, a torn calf. He was out for last year, and now it's his shot to take over for an injured outfielder. So now we face the Houston Astros, and in this game, we're going to see Keith Rice up at the major league level. I always like to give people a start right when I move them up because I like to give them that confidence. It obviously did not work with Fred Scott. He went 0 for 5, but we'll see what Keith Rice can do on the road. So we face Michael Kopech on the mound here. In his 14th start, he's 8-2. The Astros are one of the best teams in the AL, so we will see what happens today. So here we go. Keith Rice will lead off the game. He was our leadoff hitter when he first made his MLB debut, and he was really, really good. And he grounds out to first right there, or to short right there. And here's what the lineup looks like. Alex Verdugo is hitting .296. Ray Gonzalez is hitting in that 3 spot, hitting .297. I'm trying him out here to see how he does, and I want to see what he can do all around the lineup as he faces Kopech here for the 11th pitch of the at-bat, and it's a chopper up the middle, and Ray Gonzalez is just continuing to hit the ball well. It's a base hit single here with 2 outs. That's exactly what you want to see out of your kid that you drafted number 1 in this series. He was number 9 pick overall in season 1. But here that brings up Brandon Lowe, hitting in that 4 spot today, trying to move him around a little bit, and he gets called for the backwards K. He's just looking. As we move on to the top of the 3rd inning, Keith Rice here at the plate again. Hard ground ball up the middle. One thing I like about Keith Rice is that he will hit the ball hard, and he's got decent speed. That's why I like him at leadoff. He can swipe some bags. Remember in the opener episode, they predicted that he would lead the team in stolen bases, so we'll see if that happens. That brings up Alex Verdugo, high fly ball to right field. We will tag up the runner to third base, and that will be safe at third here. Keith Rice gets there, and now that brings up Ray Gonzalez. Men on first and third here. 2 outs, 3-2 pitch. That one's up in the zone, ball 4. All right, bases loaded. Brandon Lowe with an opportunity to bring some runs in here. Inside pitch, he turns on this one well. It's hit deep to right field. And it's caught at the warning track. That one was smoked. Kyle Tucker was under that one. And that's the closest we get all game to any type of runs. We only get 4 hits in this one and lose 2-0. It's just crazy, man. This season has been interesting. I expected us to win a lot of games here, and we are just floating around 500. So here we get through that Houston series. We drop 3 of 4. So let's get this straight. We drop 3 of 4 at Chicago. We get swept at home versus Minnesota. We drop 3 of 4 on the road at Houston. And then we also go to LA and drop 2 of 3 versus the Dodgers. We knew this season, at least this month would be tough. But now it seems like it's getting to us. We lose the final 2 games of the month at home versus the Seattle Mariners, who are very good. Remember, we faced them in the ALCS last season, and now we are officially below 500. 42, and 44. Something's gotta give here. We do sim the next game to start the month of July. The draft is coming up, and we're gonna delay that for next episode because I want to address something here in this episode. It's our pitching. I want to take a look. What move should we make? We end up winning that first game of July, and then we get to the second game here versus the Orioles. We simulate that one, and we're right back at 500. So we win the next 2 games, but it's looking shaky. I mean, we are still in the race here in the AL Central somehow. I think it's just that competitive, but we need to do something. Our offense really doesn't seem to be the problem, though. Alex Verdugo hitting well. Joey Meneses, he looks like he's put on an all-star campaign here in season number 5. Ray Gonzalez could be an all-star, but I maybe think that he's a little bit underrated. He might not get the votes that he wants. Cam Collier having a good season. He's on fire as well. Dylan Carlson quietly having one of the best seasons of his career as he started out slow with us, but I haven't really seen the impact from him though, so I'm going to keep an eye on him. Seth Beer hitting 297. I definitely want to get him more at-bats. He's only got like 40 at-bats, but here's our pitching. Tayfon Edwards is pitching fine. He obviously had that one bad outing this episode. Jose Urquidy had a string of bad outings, but I wouldn't expect that to keep up. I mentioned Bay Miller and the weird season that he's having. The ERA is coming down a bit. It's at 4.57, but the whip is 107. I mean, it's just insane the numbers that he is giving. But then I look at Todd Workman, who is struggling. I need to replace him. I just need to. It's just too much. Carl Edwards, 5.26 ERA, a 1.83 whip. He has been awful this year, and that's out of nowhere. He was really, really good for us the last couple of years. So I think that he's going to be the first guy I really want to make a move on. I do want to either move him down or limit his innings, something, because right now this isn't cutting it. I used him in quick manage to relieve Todd Workman, thinking that he could get him out of a jam, but it didn't work. He's probably going to end up getting moved down probably next episode. So I look around the MLB and I think I need pitching now. We have the prospects to make a trade, and one thing I like to do is I like to trade with the NL and the worst teams in the NL. So we're looking at the Giants, Brewers, Cubs, Nationals, and Marlins, and seeing if there is a player that we could trade for right now at the beginning of July, right at the, not at the trade deadline, right at the All-Star break, and who can get like a fresh start with the team, get a couple workouts in during the All-Star break, and get ready to pitch in the second half. Well, the best pitcher here is Sandy Alcantara for the Marlins, and he is really, really good. 97 overall. He is in the last year of his contract, so this would be an absolute rental here. And I want to see what it takes to get him, and it's going to take quite a bit. I used the trade finder, and they want Ray Gonzalez, Bay Miller, and Oscar Colas, and I'm not going to do that. Ray Gonzalez will not be a part of any trade ever. So that is something I'm not going to agree on. And I just wanted to see what it would take. He would be the absolute long shot to acquire. But let's look at some other pitchers. So we look around the NL Central, and I look at the Brewers. The Brewers are a struggling team. They are rebuilding. They have Jose Suarez, who they just signed in free agency. They have Pablo Lopez and Gavin Williams. Jose Suarez is the least likely to be traded from the Brewers, and realistically, it shouldn't happen because he did just sign a 4-year contract with the Brewers, and it's unlikely that you would sign somebody, then trade them with such a big number. Pablo Lopez is decent, but not exactly what I'm looking for. Now, looking at his last 4 seasons, he has not been up to 20 quality starts. He has a rental contract, $15.7 million. We'd have to pay about half of that. So he's interesting, but maybe not what I'm looking for. I look at the Cubs, though, and there is one pitcher here at the top that I am very interested in. I look at the rest of their starters here. They're okay. Like, nobody's really jumping out. But Brandon Woodruff is interesting. Now, he was signed in free agency a few seasons ago. He already has a few seasons with the Cubs already. And in 3 seasons, he's been really, really good. 24 quality starts, a 111 whip in his debut year. 138 whip. Yeah, he regressed, but he had still 20 quality starts in that season. And then this year, a 123 whip, 3.66 ERA. Now, he has a 2-year deal, and it's $19 million and $22 million, which is kind of expensive. But there's a guy that I have not been impressed with, and that's Dylan Carlson. Now, I just mentioned that it's unlikely that you would trade somebody that you just signed, but in this case, I think we're looking at more of like a, I don't know, kind of a rebuild trade here for the Cubs, because Carlson is 28. They need to still put butts in the stands. They need a guy who can play, and he is 28, and he's got a pretty cheap contract compared to Woodruff. If you think about it, it's like half the money in a season. So we're looking at a guy that can go in and get them through a quote-unquote rebuild. And who knows, you know, baseball is an interesting sport. You can have a bad season one year and then be like competing for first the next. So I don't think the Cubs are in an absolute true rebuild. I use it as a baseline, like just Carlson for Woodruff, and the Cubs are willing to do this trade straight up. I did not expect that at all. I thought that Carlson would be, you know, one of the chips to get Woodruff, but it turns out that they need outfield help right now. Brennan Davis is hurt with an extended injury, 1 to 2 months, but he's uncertain to come back to the same form. Pete Crow Armstrong is a young prospect of theirs, but he needs help. He's hitting .292, really good, and that's why I think maybe they're not in a true rebuild. But they have Seiya Suzuki, who's going to be a free agent next year, and they're probably not going to be able to re-sign him. He's going to be way too expensive. And then they have Taylor Ward in left field, who has a torn calf out 1 to 2 months, and he's going to be a free agent. So now I see why this makes a lot of sense for the Cubs. They have a lot of injuries. They have a lot of free agents coming up, and I offer this trade just straight up, and they accept. What a great find here for our GM, because the Cubs, I thought, were going to really demand some prospects, but it doesn't turn out that way because they have a big need for a young outfielder. And, you know, Dylan Carlson is still 28 years old. So Woodruff gets inserted into our starting rotation at number 3. Now, I could fluctuate him in the rotation, move him up, but I like him there at that number 3, giving, you know, the number 3 on opposing teams some tough pitching matchups. And then Carl Edwards, he's going to get moved down because of this move. And then I'm going to look at another player to move up to replace Carlson in the field. And I'm thinking it's going to be Oscar Colas. I think that's the guy that's really going to get the shot. But I like Maverick McMacklin. I'm going to try him up right now and see just if he does well. And if he does, I'm going to keep him up there. I do need some more speed on the bases, and McMacklin gives me that chance. And, you know, you got to give your prospects an opportunity at some point. But Oscar Colas is probably going to be moved up next episode also, just to have another rotational outfielder who can, you know, obviously pinch hit and play in situations. But I'm going to give McMacklin a shot. There's been guys in our organization that have been here since the beginning that have not played at the MLB level yet, and they deserve a opportunity. So that's going to do it here for this episode. Let me know what you guys think of this Brandon Woodruff trade. I really like it. I thought it was a good trade for both organizations. It will help the Cubs rebuild and compete at the same time. And then for us, we get obviously some much needed help in the rotation. Hit subscribe, hit that like button. Next episode will be the draft. So stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.
I like getting money, I got time to get it. Target on me, so my car's a tinted. Dancing with the devil, I don't bargain with it. Bobbing in the dash, and the stick is with it. And I hit the 4-5 on the west side. But I'm from the east side, this how we slide. This how we ride, yeah, this how we ride.